welcome to Fort Fritz, your one-stop for news, current events, and all forms of entertainment relating to the paranormal, the supernatural, the Fortean, and things that go bump in the night, all packaged and presented by know-nothing know-it-alls entertaining the unknown. I'm your host, Fritz, and for the next hour, we are going to have a little special Thanksgiving program for you tonight. We are highlighting all of the people who have helped make Fort Fritz successful, including this very first story by friend of the show, Nick Spry. It's about the Chase Vault in Barbados. A lot of creepy things happen here. Let's check it out. And if you would like to re-listen to this, just download that iHeartRadio app and search Fort Fritz Campfire Tales, the Chase Vault of Barbados.
You've never heard about the Chase Vault?
What? Evidently not, because of all of us saying what?
The moving coffins of Barbados.
Okay.
So this story goes back to Barbados, obviously, in the Lesser Antilles, right above South America. It's a really tiny sovereign island nation. It's only about 21 miles long by 14 miles wide, and it was for over 300 years a British colony. And so this story goes into the middle of the triangular trade where sugarcane plantations were making the country most of its money, and slavery was instituted. But in Austin, in Christchurch Parish Cemetery, along the seaboard side of Barbados' southern coast, a sunken crypt was built for someone named James Elliott in 1724. And it was sunken somewhat into the ground. It was constructed mainly from the compacted coral that makes up the foundation of most of the island, but it was reinforced.
A sunken crypt?
Yeah, a sunken
like
crypt.
Like the ones in New Orleans?
Basically. So you had to like walk down a flight of stairs to go into the crypt, which was sunken underground, and it was compacted out of this coral that makes up like most of the island, limestone, and then it was reinforced with concrete about 2 feet thick, and they would seal it off with this marble slab of blue marble that said it was so large that it took about 6 or 7 men to move it in order to close it off.
Wow.
But for about 80 years, nobody inhabited this crypt. And eventually, when the property was sold in 1808 to the wealthy Colonel Thomas Chase, he purchased the tomb as a family burial plot. And there was one body interred in there the previous year. It was Thomasina Goddard, and she had been a family friend of the family that owned the crypt before they sold it to Thomas Chase. But he decided not to remove her body and to leave it there. But it
probably
wouldn't be
smart.
long.
Yeah, nobody likes moving bodies.
Yeah. Dead body, stay where the dead body want to stay.
Yeah, I'm not touching that.
But Goddard's remains were put in a simple wooden coffin inside of the vault. The Chase family was known locally for their violent and cruel treatment of their slaves on their properties. Even though slavery had been abolished the previous year, the institution would not be dismantled for another several years. Particularly Thomas, the patriarch of the family, he was known for his rabid abuse of his family and his slaves. This plays in later on into the story. Almost immediately after he purchased the burial plot, tragedy struck the Chase family with the death of their 2-year-old daughter, Mary Ann Marie Chase, on February 22nd, 1808. Her remains were placed in a heavy, solid coffin made of lead, and when the marble slab was removed to inter her remains, it was noted that Teresa Goddard's wooden casket was there undisturbed and nothing was strange or it appeared to be totally normal, and the slab was replaced and resealed. And
why are you telling us that a coffin was unmoved?
That's scary as hell.
Well,
the thing just sat there.
Could have been forever.
Forever.
So 4 years pass, and then in 1812, the death of Dorcas Chase, Mary Ann's older sister. D-O-R-C-A-S. Dorcas.
That's
Dorcas.
unfortunate.
Dorcas, that is unfortunate. Dorcas had
Her brother Dingus.
Don't speak ill of the dead.
Very respectful. So Dorcas Chase, Mary Ann's older sister, had passed away in 1812, and it's rumored that she had committed suicide by starvation because of her father, Thomas Chase's abuse. And she was also buried in a lead casket of cumbersome weight, and she was buried on July the 6th of that year. And once again, upon opening and observing the interior of the tomb, nothing seemed to be amiss. And then less than a month later, Thomas Chase himself, the patriarch, he died, and the cause was also thought to be suicide. And Thomas's remains were to be buried in a 240-pound lead casket that took 8 men to move into the crypt. And when they opened when they opened the vault this time, though, they noticed that something was definitely wrong. The two daughters' caskets, both made of very heavy lead and totally solid, had been strewn across the tomb. It was like they were child's things. A lot of people reportedly said they were like child's toys strewn aside.
I just got goosebumps.
And one was leaned up upside down against the far wall of the tomb. And yet Godard's casket remained untouched. So then the caskets were restored to their original places, and
After all of that,
wow. and entering the new casket of Thomas Chase, the tomb was resealed, and another 4 years pass. And then in September of 1816, an 11-year-old boy, Charles Ames, he passed away, and the tomb was reopened. And again, the coffins were discovered in disarray, including Chase's 240-pound behemoth casket, tossed aside like a child's thing. So by this time, there was a bunch of different rumors and stories going on in the parish that there was some haunting going on in this tomb, and people report screaming, and it's also attributed to the mysterious death of a bunch of horses unexpectedly throwing themselves off a cliff and killing themselves.
Oh, wow.
Was due to this tomb.
That's creepy.
That's super creepy.
And hilarious.
That's the word I was going to say first.
So then, not even 2 months pass before the father of Charles, Samuel Brewston, dies. And before he's buried, the vault's examined from the exterior to make sure that nothing has disturbed it. And it's found to be both air and watertight. And yet when they open the slab, it's impossible that these lead caskets had been thrown about so violently that some of the caskets had even damaged each other, chipping away bits to where a skeleton's arm was hanging out of one of them.
Oh my
Like they're being
God.
thrown around.
Like they're being thrown around this room with no one being able to get in or out of this room. So they once again reset everything, put it back in, resealed the tomb.
Now, what's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results?
You nailed it.
In 1819, there was another burial that had to be in the same Chase vault, and it was this of Thomasina Clark. The then governor of Barbados was attending this burial and witnessed for himself what they found when they opened the slab. No one could explain it again.
Was it at this point when like everyone knew about this?
Everyone knew about
Was
this.
It
gonna
sounds like
gather around.
a really good
Haunted
event
at
for
this point.
tourism. Let's see what happens
And
when
this
we
all-
pull back
this-
those slabs.
And all this happened in less than 11 years.
It's like Groundhog's Day with dead people.
So when they open it up again, of course, again, all of the coffins have been thrown around violently, and they're all strewn all over. And again, Goddard's coffin was untouched. So the governor, after they reset everything once again, ordered a thorough examination of this site. He wanted to solve this mystery. He wanted to calm the fears of the people in the surrounding parish. And so he had the men put down this fine white sand inside the tomb, all across all the caskets and on the floor. So if someone was to enter it, they would see footprints or some sort of markings that would show trace evidence that someone had been inside of it. And then he also had them mortar off the marble slab when they resealed the tomb, and he put signet impressions of his ring to make sure that if it was cracked, that they would be able to tell that the seal was broken. The accounts are a little bit off on this, but somewhere between 8 months and 2 years later, he gave the order out of sheer curiosity.
Yeah, of
Let's
course.
go see if we find some crazy stuff, guys.
So they went back down and they examined it, and the marble slab seemed untouched, and it seemed like nothing had been molested. The signet ring impressions were still there. He wanted further evidence, so he had them break the seals and open up the contents. And this is the creepiest part of all. So the 240-pound lead casket of Thomas Chase was barring the marble entranceway, upright, standing on end, as if to prevent anyone from getting in or out of the room. It took 8 men to move the coffin down so they could get inside and inspect what had happened. And again, all of the coffins, these very, very heavy lead caskets, had been thrown all over, and even to the point where a corner had chipped off of Marie Anne's casket, and of solid lead, which implies an incredible amount of force. And yet, the white sand he had put down, there were no footprints, nothing else was disturbed in the room.
Spooky.
So the governor ordered the room to be cleared, and they buried everyone else in individual plots in the cemetery parish.
That is really, really terrifying. And do you guys want to get out of the crypt?
Yeah.
I really do.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
We'll recap outside of the crypt.
That thing just moved.
Get out of
Okay,
here.
everyone get
Yeah,
out.
let's go.
Fast walk. You are listening to Fort Fritz on Real Radio 104.1.
Fort Fritz on Real Radio 104.1.
Welcome back to Fort Fritz. We are playing all of the stories from our friends over the years, and this one is very near and dear to my heart. This is my brother Dirt McCoy telling us the story of H.H. Holmes, America's first serial killer. Again, if you want to listen to this story, just download that iHeartRadio app, search Fort Fritz Campfire Tales, and search H.H. Holmes.
I thought, I was definitely inspired by, you guys ever heard of H.H. Holmes?
The architect?
Not exactly.
Was it the guy with the really big penis? Yeah.
The porn star?
No, that was John Holmes.
You did that really quick.
Is it the wrestler? Triple H?
No, that's Hunter Hearst Helmsley.
Oh, okay.
See, H.H. Holmes was the very first serial killer in United States history.
Really?
In 1893, he started construction on the World's Fair Hotel in Chicago, Illinois, which is now known as the Murder Castle.
Yeah, that's right. Though they were doing the 1894 World's Fair happened in Chicago, and it was it's like where they unveiled the Ferris wheel. I think was the first time they did that, and there was a
first
great
funnel cake.
When he designed the hotel, he turned the entire interior of the hotel into a living game. There were never-ending hallways. There were blast charges that were behind mirrors, behind pictures. There were rooms that were actually sealed gas chambers. So people would check into the hotel and find themselves in a never-ending maze. They couldn't get out. They were gassed. They were shot. They were bludgeoned. Their bodies were soaked in acid baths, and the remains almost completely liquefied.
Whoa.
Yes. Yeah.
This was in Chicago, Illinois?
Chicago, Illinois.
And it was the World Fairs Hotel?
The World's Fair Hotel. It was such a big hotel that it took up almost an entire city block in downtown Chicago. That's how large of a hotel it was.
How many people would be staying at this hotel at any given time?
The hotel only had 3 floors. The third floor actually was originally a storage area, and then he began construction on that third floor in late 1893, telling his investors that he was expanding for the World's Fair. That's the reason why they were dubbing that hotel to be the World's Fair Hotel. What he was actually doing was creating another floor in which guests would come in and be trapped amongst the never-ending houleways that would lead them right back into detrimental situations that he had set up for them. So it was almost like a mouse's maze.
And I heard he also had easily accessible chutes to drop bodies down to furnaces.
Yes.
So, like, instead of garbage chutes, it had body chutes.
Well, and in the basement of the hotel, he had furnaces and he had acid baths. And so that's what he was doing, is he would take the dead bodies and he would either incinerate them, or you can only incinerate so many bodies in a day before the smoke becomes very evident. And so that was in the situation where he decided to start using acid baths because it was less conspicuous.
Isn't it true that he was getting rid of some of the bodies by, basically getting rid of all the flesh on them and just selling off the skeletons to medical schools at the time? Because skeletons and human cadavers were in great need for medical students training doctors.
Right. And actually, he was a doctor himself, and that's why he was able to do that.
Really?
Yeah. He graduated from the University of Michigan in 1884. Most of his activity was never questioned because he was actually regarded as a doctor.
Wow.
Yeah,
So, did they ever catch this guy? What the fuck?
He was actually apprehended in 1894, and he was brought to trial and hanged.
Whoa.
All right.
Right.
Well, how many people do they think he killed?
He confessed to 27 murders.
What?
After the course of his execution, they linked it to more than 200.
Jeez.
Yeah, but some of the people he said he killed were still living. So he
Correct.
kind of
Yes.
of weaved his own web of lies so that maybe people can give him credit and say, I don't know if he did that.
Right, but
He was a master manipulator.
Sure, but the way they came to the number of 200 was by the number of people who checked into the murder castle that were never heard of again.
Interesting.
Well, okay, let's say you have a hotel. Wouldn't you say 200 people who checked in never checked back up at the hotel again? Or do you mean like they were killed?
Well, they didn't have Yelp back then, so you couldn't really
Gotcha.
post a
That was the
Yelp
review.
review and be like,
Totally was killed.
Never
totally
left.
never going here again. In an acid bath right now.
Lame.
-1 star.
So how did they end up catching him eventually?
The insurance companies were pressing to prosecute him for arson.
He was also like trying to fraud life insurance companies,
Yes,
right?
yeah, exactly.
Wait a
Which
minute.
is exactly.
So he left Chicago in July of 1894 and went to Fort Worth because he had invested some properties there from previous people that he had defrauded life insurance policies from.
Oh.
So that's where he ended up, going. So he was trying to actually construct another castle, another murder castle in Fort Worth, Texas.
He's looking to expand.
Yes.
Make it a chain.
Yeah. And basically what he was doing was the same thing he did in Chicago is he was swindling suppliers out of the materials to build the hotel or to build out the castle with, and they're just never paying on any of his
Borrowing
debts.
on credit for all
Exactly,
the lumber
right,
and labor and.
But like you can have a free room at the hotel any night you want, sir.
So-
And that's how he kept it, because you can't build these things and not have people eventually go, why are you putting a flamethrower behind a mirror? So he would not pay people. He would go through several different contractors to keep what he was doing secret. Because otherwise people would eventually go, okay, really, you're not supposed to have a saw under a bed.
The noise helps me sleep.
The white noise.
So his original arrest, it was for selling mortgaged goods in St. Louis, Missouri.
Okay.
Like
he
going
was-
to pawn shops, pawn brokers, or
he was selling goods that were not paid. So basically, if you had a mortgaged good, what that means is that you don't really own it. You bought it on loan or you bought it on a line of credit.
gotcha.
And he was taking these items from people who, he'd either crossed or done business with or whatever, and was trying to resell them again before they were actually paid off to the original loan.
Gotcha.
That's what he was arrested for. And then, promptly bailed out of jail. But while he was in jail, he struck up a conversation with a convicted outlaw named Marion Hedgepeth, who was serving a 25-year sentence. Holmes had concocted a plan to swindle an insurance company out of $10,000 by taking out a policy on himself and then faking his own death.
Ooh.
Holmes promised to pay Hedgepeth a $500 commission in exchange for the name of a lawyer who could be trusted. Holmes was directed to a young St. Louis attorney by the name of Jephthah Howe. Howe was in practice with his older brother, Alfonso Howe, who had no involvement with Holmes or any of the fraudulent activities, at all. Nevertheless, his plan to fake his own death failed when the insurance company became suspicious and refused to pay.
Probably because he was just arrested,
Yes.
and now he's cooking up something with an insurance policy.
So his co-conspirator, the guy's name was Pietzel. When the previous attorney said, "Hey, we're not going to pay on it," the two of them just moved on, and they started finding other attorneys and other insurance companies they were trying to swindle. And when it became clear to Holmes that this guy was not going along with what he wanted to do, he chloroformed the guy and killed him as well.
Yeah.
That seems right.
Well, he could
Wait, so he took out a policy on his partner and then offed him?
correct. Yes.
Who
Yeah.
hasn't
Yeah.
thought about doing
Right.
that? Come on.
So he took out a policy on Pietzel, killed him, and was continuing to collect on that.
Oh, pretzel. I'll miss
Right. That's what started getting the IRS's attention, and the United States government started figuring out where's all this money coming from, and why is this guy collecting on the insurance policies of all these people?
Right.
And it basically led them into the funnel, which was H.H. Holmes.
And what year was this at?
This was in 1894.
That's when he was caught.
Yes.
And the World's Fair was 1894.
It was 1894.
Really?
But, yes, but he started construction on the hotel in 1893 to have it ready for the World's Fair.
What else can you tell us about this guy?
Okay, so this is where the story gets a little spooky.
Because the rest was just normal, just work a day,
Standard Chicago
boilerplate,
Compared to what I'm about to tell you, yes. Okay. So in 2006, his great-great-grandson, H.H. Holmes' last name was actually Mudgett.
That made me
In
want to
fact,
kill people.
his firstborn son was Robert Mudgett, who became an accountant and was actually the city manager for Orlando, Florida. 2005, his great-great-grandson inherited all of the belongings of H.H. Holmes.
Does the guy go by Mudgett or Holmes?
He goes by Mudgett.
All right, nice.
Yes. He's actually an attorney in the Midwest, in the state of Illinois.
Okay.
So when he inherits all of the belongings of his great-great-grandfather, he was intrigued by, handwritten journals and letters to home and books and all of these other things. And so he's going through them. And as he starts going through these books, he finds a detailed plan that he had written out where he was going to evade his own execution by tricking a less than sharp inmate that was in jail with him into taking his spot on the gallows and being hung instead of him.
Really?
So he might have faked his own death?
So he starts into the investigation on, is H.H. Holmes actually buried in H.H. Holmes's grave? That was step one. Step two is, as he starts going through these journals, he finds a series of journals that were written between 1888 and 1891, before the construction of the murder castle.
Mm-hmm.
In those journals, he is living in London, England at the time.
Okay.
And in those journals between those dates, he details the murder and dismemberment of multiple prostitutes in the city of London.
Really?
That all coincide with the murders that were the Jack the Ripper murders.
Oh, no.
When did he graduate? Oh, no.
Oh, no!
When did he graduate from medical school?
In 1884.
So he was an actual doctor.
Yes, he was an actual doctor.
And that would fit the Jack the Ripper profile.
Well, I don't know, because what I was looking at, there was one detective who did not think it was a surgical hand. It looked like it was a layman just hacking into throats.
But
Correct.
there's also theories, though, that it was a basic knowledge of anatomy, so it could have been someone who was just skilled with butchering animals as well.
Correct. So there is the possibility that H.H. Holmes was not only America's first serial killer, but he was also Jack the Ripper.
You are listening to Fort Fritz on Real Radio 104.1.
Fort Fritz on Real Radio 104.1.
Welcome back to Fort Fritz, our Thanksgiving special edition. This one is from our very second episode we have ever done. Our friend Sarah Bick tells us the story of the Jersey Devil. Again, just download that iHeartRadio app, search Fort Fritz Campfire Tales, and search Jersey Devil.
In pieces, eaten by cats.
Wait, what do you mean? Is this something that you have experience in?
Yeah, a little bit. Don't you know what rips apart humans and animals and leaves them with bones everywhere?
Death claws.
Death claws and fangs, and they can fly. Oh, and you'll never see
What the hell
them.
are you talking about?
The Jersey Devil.
What the hell is the Jersey Devil?
You mean the hockey team?
Oh, yeah.
Well,
Big
that's
fan.
that's new. They're not very good, but I've always thought the Jersey Devil was America's most endearing cryptid legend, but the origin of how it became is something people don't really know about. In eastern New Jersey, near an area called Pine Barrens, circa 1795, there was Mother Leeds, and she had 12 children. After finding out she was pregnant for the 13th time, she said this one would be a devil, or something like, the devil can take this one. Legend has it, it changed into a creature with hooves, a goat's head, bat wings, and a forked tail. Growling and screaming, it killed the midwife in the room before flying out the chimney, encircling the villages, and then heading toward the pines. So later, a clergyman exorcised the demon for 100 years and was not seen again until 1890. But references to the devil don't appear in newspapers or flyers until the 20th century. The first major story came in 1909. During the month of January that year, newspapers published hundreds of claimed encounters with the Jersey Devil from all over the state. Literally hundreds. Claims like the creature attacked a trolley car and a club. Police in Pennsylvania supposedly shot at it and had no effect. Other reports told about unidentified footprints in the snow, and that the dogs were called in to follow the tracks. They refused to do so. Soon sightings of creatures resembling the Jersey Devil were being reported throughout South Jersey and as far away as Delaware, Western Maryland. All this widespread newspaper coverage led to panic throughout, prompting a number of schools to close and workers to stay home. And also, it's rumored that the Philadelphia Zoo posted a $10,000 reward for the creature's droppings. Scat. Excrement. A recent sighting of the creature was in 1993 when a forest ranger driving along a river in southern New Jersey was forced to stop when he saw that the road ahead of him was blocked by something. He described it as about 6 feet tall with horns and matted black fur. He said that he and the thing looked at each other for several minutes before the monster finally turned and ran into the forest. Even more recently, this October, a photo of something resembling the Jersey Devil was captured on a cell phone. People Magazine and Vice News and a bunch of others covered it. Dave Black wrote about his Tuesday night account. I was just driving past the golf course and had to shake my head a few times when I thought I saw a llama. If that wasn't enough, then it spread its leathery wings and flew off. So, over the course of hundreds of years, I don't know why this is still a relevant myth. They say the woods of Pine Barrens is known as a desolate, nearly impenetrable forest where dozens of murders have taken place, but I bet the surrounding towns seem to enjoy the legend, the occult feel of the area. There's a certain nostalgia, a creepiness that only they get to experience. They'll always have the Jersey Devil, but we just get to talk about it.
The Jersey Devil. Wow, that's that reminds me. Is the Jersey Devil? Is that what the X-Files episode is? Really? So it's the Jersey Devil. It's like this feral family in the woods with this possessed child who terrorizes the town.
Or it's about the hockey team, the Jersey Devils.
Either way,
you can look either way.
You know what? If I saw Mulder in a pair of ice skating, blades, doing the little backward skate, going like, "So Scully, oh my God."
There you go.
I would buy season passes for that. Season passes, and that's a promise.
Bit of a Scully fan, I see.
Mulder.
Who is it?
Oh, Mulder. Oh, okay,
and
sorry.
Mulder, too.
I wasn't an X-Files fan, sorry. One of the things that I remember as a kid, used to always try to get the books about urban legends and things like that, and I think it was talking about the early Jersey Devil sightings where they woke up and the footprints in the snow were hoof prints, and some of them went up the sides of buildings.
Oh, yeah.
And across roofs. And that, when I was a kid, just terrified me. I'm a Florida kid, so of course I'd never see snow, but the idea of seeing hoof prints go up the side of your building.
Wait a minute. Like walking, like it's walking on the ground, like X-axis, and then Y-axis, it's walking up?
Yeah.
Vertical?
And then across the roof and down the other side.
Like, it can fly, but it's, like, tired, so it just can... Man, it's
Just kind of convulses? What does it do?
Demons tend to defy physics, it seems.
That is insane.
Does it just prey on like drunk, horny teenagers?
I think it's anything. In the
Are there any other
woods
type of
and-
teenagers?
Sarah, Sarah, does this creature have any kind of MO? Is it vandalizing farmers' crops?
There's all sorts of things. It's kind of like they say that like cows were found ripped apart, and of course livestock is, but it would say little children would be taken too. Probably not teenagers. It's too big because the thing is not supposed to be that big. It's supposed to be smaller, but it would take little children. And during that time, a bunch of little kids went missing, and they attribute it to the Jersey Devil.
To which time frame was that?
1700s,
Really?
late 1700s.
Okay,
yeah.
so back in the day, it was just kind of this creature, but then you were saying in 1994, as recently as 1994, there was a stop where it was a 6 foot tall figure
so
with
either
horns?
it's grown,
Oh, my God.
or it's offsprung.
Ooh.
But a devil, how long does a devil live? I don't know. But and then
I don't think devils die, do they?
last month there was
They
a
already
picture
did.
of it. So
that was just last month, that sighting you're talking about. Yeah.
Vice talks about it. Yeah,
Oh,
it's
wow.
pretty
Oh,
cool.
my God. Vice News?
Look it up.
Jeez.
Oh,
That's
Vice
insane.
News. Yeah.
They do a good
Telling
job.
me.
They do good reporting. They're
They
solid.
do. Their
I'm a fan. I'm
documentaries
a
are
fan.
incredible.
I'm a fan. Now they do a weekly show that I really
They do.
like. Yep.
Yeah, they're always in Baghdad, though. It's like every
This
single
episode
show.
brought to you by Vice News.
Yes, Vice News. I'd like to thank our new sponsor for the show.
Send us things.
That's insane. Yeah, the only thing that I know about the Jersey Devil is just kind of like it'll be one of those almost like classic cryptozoology stories of driving late at night, a creature passes in front of the car.
Yep.
You go, what the hell was that?
No
You
thanks.
park, you try to look out, and you just see like a human like shoulder and a body of something else, just running into the woods. Like,
I actually know quite a few people from Jersey, and from what I understand, as they were growing up, like as little kids, their parents would use it as sort of like a boogeyman story, like you better go to bed or else the Jersey Devil's going to come and get you.
Wow.
That's awesome. That's what I mean. The town. That must be so much fun to live in.
I don't know if fun's the way to describe it. Be like,
It's
look
a
at
weird sense of fun over there.
I don't know.
yeah, I don't know. Well, I mean, I don't know if okay. So let's say I do have a Jersey Devil in my back 40. Okay,
Good chance of it. Good chance of it.
Like, would I befriend him? Like, he might.
You can't befriend him.
Yeah,
I
it's
can't
usually
befriend
because
him.
the word devil is, that's usually not a friendly term.
Well,
my buddy's the devil.
Yeah,
you
but
know?
like George Burns, oh God, you devil.
Ah, that's true.
He was a real
yeah,
friendly
that
kind of
is
devil.
true.
So George Burns was a devil.
Yeah.
Yes.
The devil.
Okay, wait. Yeah, that's a good correlation. George Burns was the devil. Is Jersey Devil George Burns' devil?
is
That
George-
might be
Was
pretty
George
cool.
Burns the devil for real?
Is
Yeah,
George
totally.
Burns from New Jersey?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Are they
Yes,
just
now.
talking about George Burns?
For the
Might
purpose of what we're talking about, he totally is.
Wow.
Might I just interject? Boss Man Jack, friend of the show.
Speaking
friend
of
the
devils.
show, friend of the show, is from Jersey.
Oh.
So this is
Wait a
going-
minute.
Yep.
Has anyone ever seen Jack and the Jersey Devil in the same room at the same time?
Sarah, can you get on that research?
I'm checking right now.
I don't know about this.
Also, do you think Bruce Springsteen has any songs about the devil?
Doesn't he?
Most of them, really.
He should have most of the songs about the devil.
I mean, I thought they sound like they came from hell.
Oh, jeez.
Come on. Aw, he's so hardworking.
I'm a Floridian.
You are listening to Fort Fritz right here on Real Radio 104.1.
Fort Fritz on Real Radio 104.1.
Welcome back to Fort Fritz. Finally, we end with a story from none other than Sabrina Ambra. This one details the deaths of Kris Kremers and Lisanne Froon, and you can find this on the Mystery Maze of Deceit.
Have you guys ever heard of the deaths of Kris Kremers and Lisanne Froon?
No, I don't.
No.
I love it.
It may be Kremers or Kremers, and it may be Froon or Froon, but both are dead, and that's for sure.
That's sad.
It is very sad, but the way that they died is unknown to anybody. Panama, the entire place, not city, to be confused with the one in Florida.
Or the song.
Or the song that I'm not familiar with. April Fool's Day, but really the fools may have been, I feel bad saying that, but it goes with it, may have been Kris and Lisanne, and their foolish act was going on that mountain. It was a hike in Panama, and after an extensive search, their bodies as a whole were unable to be found.
Really?
Only parts of it.
Oh.
They were just like down there vacationing and disappeared?
22 and 21. They were described as open, creative, and responsible gals. But not on top of that, they were also really kind to poor kids.
Oh, that's nice.
So they went over to, they grew up in Amersfoort, which is one of the most beautiful places this time of the year.
In Panama?
Nope. In the Netherlands.
Yeah.
They're from Amersfoort. And they thought, perhaps we shall go to Panama and help the little children.
Oof. Sounds like a Tennessee Williams play.
Yeah.
It really does.
So, upon arrival, it was about a 6-week vacation starting in March. What they did is they...
vacation.
Yes, they...
Must be nice.
A charity kind. The Netherlands, they do it right. They may spend a couple weeks looking at the sites, but they also spend an entire month helping children. Now, they were, around that time, being hosted by a local family. While taking care of these children for a month, they stayed with the host family, and the host family had a dog named Blue. April 1st, 2014, the girls decided to go on a bit of a hike, and they take Blue with them, because Blue, he cool like that.
Of course. Blue. You cool like that?
Now, the host family, they became very alarmed April 2nd when Blue returned home by himself at night.
That's not good. That's never good.
It's a big one.
So, days pass, and after failing to meet a friend, a young German woman, out for lunch, they realize these people are missing. These gals are nowhere to be found. Finally, the parents of both the Kremers and Froon flew to Panama along with the police, special forces to search for the two girls.
Wow.
And they were nowhere to be found. Even offered a $30,000 reward in Panama, which is, I'm pretty sure, if I'm doing my calculations correct, about $4 billion.
What?
At the time.
And this is within the first...
It's gone down. It was just in
There's a
2014.
boom in 2014, messed up stuff.
They offered that reward within the first 3 days of them being missing?
I think it was, April 6th, they offered the award. The Dutchkin did not help because it was 10 weeks later.
Jeez.
After no sign, after the search, a woman turned in a backpack to authorities. She claimed to have found it while tending to her rice paddy, because that's old school as
Yes.
Seriously. Rice
I didn't even know they had rice fields in Panama.
They got rice in Florida.
But I'm pretty sure it's by machine, not an old woman with a rice paddy by the river. And it was by her village, which is 12 hours by foot from where the girls disappeared from.
Okay.
Now, they identified it immediately as Lauren's backpack. It had a PowerShot camera, a Canon, very expensive, HD pictures, 1080p, 2 bras, a Samsung Galaxy phone, and an iPhone 4. Everything well packed, dry, and left in good condition. This is 10 weeks later, 12 hours by foot from where they disappeared from. Now, they went through their data, and it turns out that one of the girls had tried some hours after the start of their hike to get in contact with police, which is 112 in the Netherlands and 911 over in Panama.
So that happened immediately when they left?
Yeah, something had gone down with the two girls when they started their hike. Hours later, they tried to call. Now, with the mobile phones, they also saw that none of the calls had gone through, but after the logs were retrieved, they saw both phones had made multiple emergency calls. Just hours after the beginning, the iPhone had made a call. Then there was one from the Galaxy phone. None of the calls had gone through, but there was one that lasted over a second before breaking up. After April 5th, so they gone missing April 1st, one of the phone battery became exhausted, was not used again, but the iPhone made another call, but it was, because of reception, it turned on just for a second.
But who did they call?
I think it was the mother of one of the girls. Then one report showed that between the 7th and 10th of April, there were 77 emergency calls attempts on the iPhone.
Oh, whoa.
From when was that?
Between 7 and 10 days after they disappeared.
And they were still trying to ping, or the phone was just on?
The phone was trying to make emergency calls. They would not go through,
77?
but according to the logs, they had tried it 77 times. And then April 11th at 10:51 a.m.
I'm sorry, I gotta interrupt. This is super sad. And this was 2014?
2014.
Wow.
But it gets even crazier.
We've talked about people getting slaughtered and ripped apart and everything. That wasn't really sad, but the fact that 2014 makes it a little closer because they have iPhones.
Yes.
A person with an iPhone had something happen to him?
Wait a second. That means it could happen to us.
Damn it.
They also had a PowerShot camera, and on April 1st, it shows that the girls were taking the trail. There's pictures of them, and shortly after their first attempt at 911. Then, April 8th, it was used again to take 90 flash photos between 1 a.m. and 4 a.m. at the rate of a photo every 2 minutes.
Whoa!
And most of the 90 photos were taken deep in the jungle and near complete darkness. A few photos had shown a river or a ravine. Some visible photos showed a twig with plastic bags and candy wrappers. And then there was one photo that shows the back of one of the girls' heads that possibly looks like there's blood on her temple.
Oh, man.
Oh, no.
Not clarified and not solved what these photos may mean. Finally, I think it was probably 2 months later, even closer to the backpack where this was discovered, a boot with a foot inside of it.
No one wants to see that.
How far away was that from this camp? That was like a 12-hour walk?
It was a 12-hour walk, and then this was that they say is just shorter. And
Yeah, it's got to be.
The boot was nearby.
If you think a person walks maybe 5 miles an hour, it's at most 60 miles away.
So Chris's jean shorts were zipped and neatly folded on top of a rock on the opposite eastern bank of the area where they found the backpack initially. Mm-hmm. Then, in a short time span, over 33 bones would be discovered from long distances apart from each other in the same riverbank. DNA testing in the Netherlands, excuse me, had confirmed that it was belonging to the two girls. Also been noted that Froon's bones still had some skin attached to them, while Chris's bones appeared to have been bleached.
Yeah, I was just about to say, if they found bones maybe 10 weeks, months afterwards, it takes years for it to get down to a pure bone in decomposition. That's ooh.
How do you know that?
Done a job.
Interesting.
So, there's a lesson to be learned here.
What's that?
I'm not quite sure yet.
Oh my God, that's scary.
We need the lesson.
Thank you very much for listening to Fort Fritz. Up next is Bungalower in the Bus. We hope everyone out there listening had a very happy Thanksgiving or a very normal Thursday and Friday. We'll see you next week.
Until next time, pleasant dreams.